As we delve into the political landscape of River State, the ongoing defections from the People's Democratic Party, or PDP, bring to light a significant instability that raises pressing questions about its future and unity. Alarm bells are ringing among politicians and citizens alike, and the atmosphere is thick with uncertainty. In the midst of a state of emergency, Governor Sim Fubara's dissatisfaction with governance adds another layer of complexity to the already tumultuous political environment. His supporters, fueled by frustration, are now urging him to either step down or take decisive action to steer the party and the state in a more positive direction. However, the governor's comments have ignited a firestorm of outrage among his followers, many of whom feel let down by his leadership during this pivotal moment for the PDP. This sentiment has spurred a louder chorus demanding accountability and results, as the pressure mounts for Fubara to address their concerns. Moreover, it's not just political leaders who are expressing their dissent. Various ethnic groups in River State, including the Niger Delta and Yoruba communities, have voiced their frustrations against the current political leadership and the circumstances surrounding the state of emergency. Their grievances underscore a fragmented political landscape, one that is increasingly marked by division and distrust. In light of these developments, the ambiguity surrounding the governor's statements has sparked a crucial conversation about the need for clear communication from political leaders. The ongoing lack of transparency only deepens public dissatisfaction and erodes trust in governance, which is essential for any functioning democracy. Supporters of Governor Fubara are now calling for him to adopt a firmer stance or resign, reflecting a growing impatience with what many perceive as ineffective leadership. This sentiment is echoed across a wider population that is increasingly demanding accountability from those in political office. As we explore the broader implications, the necessity for constitutional compromise becomes apparent. When leaders decide it's time for a change, creating pathways for smoother transitions and fresh perspectives can prevent stagnation and foster progress within the political framework. Ideally, the relationship between governors and ministers should be characterized by cooperation, irrespective of political affiliations. This collaborative spirit is essential to ensure that the state and its citizens benefit from effective governance. Yet, the issue of governors undermining their predecessors remains particularly pronounced in River State. Such actions not only lead to unnecessary crises but also hinder the overall progress of the state, creating obstacles that could have been easily avoided. In the face of these challenges, the potential for mass rebellion in Nigeria looms large. It takes on various forms, from passive resistance to strikes, showcasing the diverse ways in which citizens can express their dissent. Political leaders must remain vigilant and consider these factors as they strategize for the future. Amid all this turmoil, the PDP grapples with internal strife, where defections and leadership challenges, driven by decisions made by influential figures like Artiko, detract from the party's unity and effectiveness. Rebuilding trust and accountability within the party is crucial, if it hopes to regain its footing. Moreover, the ongoing debate over zoning issues within the PDP reflects deeper principles of representation and fairness in Nigerian politics. Wiki's stance on Southern leadership has become a focal point in these discussions, emphasizing their importance for the party's future direction and relevance. Yet, it's crucial to recognize that Wiki's qualities are often overlooked, leading to misunderstandings in political discussions. Emphasizing these positive attributes can help foster a more balanced perspective, allowing for more constructive dialogue. Addressing the current political limbo is essential for effective leadership moving forward. Leaders must clarify their positions to avoid confusion and gradually rebuild the lost trust of their supporters. Lastly, the importance of positive masculinity in politics cannot be overstated. By encouraging respectful and assertive behavior among political leaders, we can pave the way for a more stable and effective governance that truly serves the needs of the people.
The main opposition PDP camp, another catalogue of defection carnage as the ruling APC continues to claim opposition politicians, and many Nigerians watch in dismay. Beyond the defections, internecine conflict remains rife as the PDP in the southeast threatens a mass walkout, and the mood gets more sour by the day. Over in the PDP-controlled River State, which is under an APC government-imposed state of emergency, the PDP governor, Sim Fubara, says he's had it with governance and his spirit has long since left Government House. This as his fellow PDP governors continue to try to get the Supreme Court to rule on the constitutionality of Mr. Fubara's suspension. Meanwhile, Mr. Fubara's supporters, clearly frustrated with what they say is his weakness, have thrown the gauntlet down and are calling on him to resign or fight back. So are things edging ominously towards what could be an explosive conclusion in both the PDP and in Rivers State, or perhaps not at all? Well, for her take on all of this, I'm joined now in the studio by the international multimedia journalist and former BBC correspondent, Donu Kogbara, who currently has a column in Vanguard newspaper, is the star of a YouTube channel called Donu's World, co-presents a podcast called Africa Here and Now, and writes for the Europe-based magazine Africa Report. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me, Charles.
Let's start with your home state, Rivers State, and the recent speech made by Governor Sim Fubara, in which he said he'd essentially had enough of governance and that his spirit had left government house. I mean, seen from the context of people like yourself who defended him and his mandate following his suspension, what's your reaction to what he had to say?
Well, when he made that speech on Sunday at a kind of tribute event for our wonderful late patriarch, Chief Edwin Clark, who, by the way, would have been horrified by his statement. I think I can say that because I knew Clark pretty well. Many of us felt betrayed. I honestly felt as if someone had given me a kick in the stomach. I said so. At the time, several people contacted me and said, what did he say? Did he really say that? So Fubara has to make his mind up. Since this problem started on March the 18th, he has maintained this sort of like dogged silence, apart from once telling us on Easter Sunday to ally with President Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, which is not what you expect to hear from a PDP governor.
Indeed.
Who is being attacked by President Tinubu. Because let's not make any mistake about it. He's been pretty well sacked. His posters have been ripped off billboards, and our resources have been hijacked. So, okay, so he made one statement on Easter Sunday, which made a lot of us very angry. And then he made another statement last Sunday, which made a lot of us feel very betrayed. I have subsequently spoken to, I've only met Sim Fubara once, and he seemed like a perfectly pleasant man. But I know people who know him very well, and a lot of them have been pleading on his behalf, because I've been going ballistic all week, because I set up this organization called Rescue Rivers. So we have our WhatsApp group, and then we also have other groups around Niger Delta people, Rivers people, and even some Yoruba people from Tinubu's political heartland are very opposed to the state of emergency and all the nonsense that's going on in Rivers State. So we've all been exchanging opinions, and Fubara's fans, I call them, are saying, please forgive him. He didn't mean it like that.
Well, I was going to ask you that, and sorry to interrupt you, but is there perhaps a subtext to that statement he made, another way of reading and interpreting it that might suggest that he actually meant to say or to communicate some other meaning, perhaps?
I don't think there's any room for ambiguity in these sorts of situations. If everybody reads what you say in one way, then that's the only way it can really be seriously read by normal people. If there's some hidden message or, complex subterranean agenda, hey, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't tell, okay? So they're saying he doesn't mean it. He didn't mean it like that. He didn't mean to make us.
Well, he seemed pretty forthright, though.
He said he didn't ask anybody to help him or defend him. I mean, I don't see how else that can be interpreted. And some of his fans have also said that, we need to be patient. He's a very quiet, serious-minded, deep-thinking guy. He's not like firebrands like me, who go around talking anyhow and expressing our opinions. But I just say, well, you're either a leader or you're not. If you want to be a nice, quiet, private citizen who keeps his thoughts to himself, and if you can't articulate yourself well in public, then you have no business being the leader of any significant organization. Never mind the government of the biggest, the capital of the Niger Delta.
That's an important point, and I understand a lot of his supporters, including yourself, have now sort of thrown down the gauntlet and are calling on him to fight back convincingly and without equivocation, or resign and be done with it. And you're one of those.
Oh, definitely. Look, I never wanted Fubara to be governor in the first place. But, you know, he was inflicted on us by Wike, his predecessor, with whom he has now quarreled. And, you know, some of us were gracious enough to say, okay, so he's the governor now. And when he was disgraced, we said to Wike and Tinubu, I mean, I've signed an open letter to the president saying, you can't, don't treat us and him like that, you know? So...
Well, he's clearly not listening, is he?
Well, I don't think Tinubu really cares what anyone thinks. His main focus is 2027, from what I can gather. We'll talk about that later, because it's really, really disturbing that someone who's halfway through his term is more fixated on what's happening in a couple of years' time than in what's going on around him.
Although
now.
We haven't seen that from him, though. We've seen that from a lot of people who purport to support him, but we haven't seen him coming out overtly about 2027, have we?
Well, we're all heads of one household or organization or department or the other. I mean, you know, the people who work here in Arise News are not going to run out and start saying things that you and Untuka, your owner, don't agree with in public. The people in my little office, they reflect, at least publicly, the position that I take. So I still think that the people who are talking about 2027 obsessively are speaking for the president. And anyway, going back to Fubara, I would say, look, Oga, Your Excellency, step up or step down. You have a very, very competent deputy. I know her, Ngozi Odu. If you don't want this job, give it to Ngozi. If Ngozi doesn't want the job because she's your partner and you both decide you've had enough, then there has to be some kind of constitutional compromise that will enable someone else to move in there, right? And preferably not another one of Wike's nominees, because we've had enough of him and his wahala. So step up or step down, and you can say that you're tired. You're a human being. If you want to give up, you're welcome to say you're fed up. But it is, you know, it's very dubious to say that you want to give up when you're supposed to be the leader of men.
Well, what about Nyesom Wike and how you see him now in all of this? Has he succeeded, as one person put it, in firmly placing his boot on Sim Fubara's neck and forced him into submission?
Look, as you know, I know Wike. If I was Sim, I'd have gone along for the ride and done whatever Wike wanted, unless I was ready for a very tough battle. There's an old video of Fayose, I think he used to be governor of Ekiti State, advising Sim when he was the crown prince-elect not to upset Wike. Because anybody who knows Wike knows that he's a rougher man. You know, I once told him to his face, you're a bit of a principality, you know? So don't go and annoy him and fight him unless you're ready for it. So Fubara has, you know, he's pulled the tiger's tail. He can't cope. Wike has won, quite frankly. He has won. And we're not happy about it because, many of us are not happy about it because we think that Wike should go and face his job as FCT minister. Seems to be doing quite well here in Abuja. And he should leave Rivers State alone and move on. When he was governor, and Amici, his predecessor, was harassing him, trying to use federal might against him, he didn't like it. And people like me supported him. At least I'm consistent. I was much closer to Amici before than I was to Wike. I told Amici, just leave this boy alone. You know, he's the governor now, let him be. Whether you like him, you don't like him, nobody cares. Stop creating drama, stop creating tension and crisis. Because Rivers State is the loser at the end of the day. Because what you really want in any state, since every state has a governor and a minister, The ideal scenario is for the governor and minister to work together to better the state, even if they don't belong to the same party. The selfish lack of patriotism that you see in River State governors just is sickening. You know, each one wants to destroy his predecessor instead of thinking of ways to work with his predecessor. And I have to say, it seems to be a particularly unique River State problem, because in other states, okay, like take Akwa Ibom for example, Akpabio has had his issues with various people who followed him. I have never seen Akpabio going out of his way to generate so much crisis in Uyo and environs that Akwa Ibom grinds to a halt and a state of emergency becomes necessary. You know, are you the only person who is having problems with his godson? Nobody cares. So honestly, Wike should. He has made himself extremely unpopular. He's lost a couple of mates, like, you know, friends like me. When I say mates, I mean it in the English sense. And I wouldn't suggest that, you know, I'm on the same level as a Nigerian governor who's like a prince, you know, a king, an emperor. So I'm just saying that Fubara has lost. But you know what? They just say that you can lose a battle and come back to fight another day. You know, if Fubara plays his cards right and his body language changes and his utterances change, he can actually beat Wike, you know.
Well, I mean, there's still a shot, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because you've got the challenge from the PDP governors who mounted a challenge in the Supreme Court against his suspension. If that turns out to be in his favor, it could give him the kind of, you know, the strength and the impetus to kind of return a bit stronger, couldn't it?
And he doesn't just have the possibility of legal remedies. He also has the possibility of mass rebellion. Now, when you say mass rebellion, in a fake democracy like Nigeria, they will try and arrest you because they will say that you're inciting people to throw bombs and commit terrorist acts. No. There's all kinds of rebellion. There's passive rebellion. There's people going on strike. I believe, having done some research, that Same is much more popular than Wike. So if he mobilizes the Rivers people to stand behind him and say, no.
Yeah, but he said he doesn't want anybody supporting
well,
him.
then, if he doesn't want it, he should bugger off.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's move on to another topic. Since we mentioned sort of we're into the subject of the PDP now, let's talk about the welter of defections and how you see all that.
Funnily enough, the PDP problem is also triggered by the very same principality who is causing the problem in River State. One, Barrister Nyesom Wike. He is a very, very critical part of this problem that PDP is having. Atiku is partly to blame for it, because you might recall that Atiku refused to replace the Northern Party chairman with a Southerner when Wike and Co requested it, and then he walked off with 5 governors. But you see, the thing is that PDP has only itself to blame for this crisis, because once Wike turned on PDP and helped Tinubu win the election, and I use the word win with some skepticism, but once they at least were declared winner with Wike's, APC was declared winner with Wike's help, I mean, PDP should have thrown him out. They should have thrown him out and said, you know, A2 Wike, you have betrayed us, you have disgraced us, goodbye. But instead, they've allowed him to stay as a member. He's still a member of PDP.
Well, he attended their big governors' meeting just recently.
So they shouldn't come and be crying, weeping and wailing.
But beyond all the sort of allegations, and perhaps justifiably so, against Nyesom Wike, I mean, is there an element of principle in what he says? Because if you listen to his last media chat, I mean, he was talking about the principle of rotation, that if you know, this thing should have gone to the south, and he's saying to them again now, don't zone it to the north, zone it to the south, because this technically is still the period of the south. I mean, is there an element of principle there?
I've said on this program a number of times that Wike is not always wrong. And he was definitely right about the zoning issue in PDP that drove him out. I mean, that might have just been an excuse because he was generally pissed off that he hadn't been selected as the candidate. But, you know, they played into his hands and he left. And he was right about zoning then. He's right about some other things. It's just that when you misbehave a lot of the time, people forget about your good qualities. Wike has some good qualities and Wike is not always wrong. And by the way, let me say this. A lot of people are going to be very upset with me for saying this. Wike is right. Fubara is an ingrate.
So how do you think things, I mean, how do you predict things will end in Rivers State?
I want Fubara to remember that it's not about him. You've accepted this job, and if you're going to stay in it, you don't dangle in some kind of limbo. Nobody knows where you stand. And you're holding on to something you say you don't want, that other people who want it, and I can assure you, will do a better job than you. So either you galvanize yourself and galvanize your political base, and, you know, you can face Tinubu and Wike down. They're not gods. They lose. They have lost in certain parts of the country. They don't win all the time, you know. There are people who are ready to say no to them, like me, right? Look, to be honest with you, if I wanted to be in APC or in Tinubu's camp or Wike's camp, I could be. There are many people like me who don't want to be. Maybe in some cases it's personal, in other cases it's to do with principles. You know, but the long and short of it is that I think that Sim Fubara should stop being so ungrateful towards the people who have tried to defend him. At least, even if he wants to go, let him say thank you to us first and then go. Or say thank you and stay. And I think he should fight Wike.
Right.
You know, because, I mean, it's not good for somebody to constantly win. It's not good for somebody to win every single battle.
Right. Well, we've got less than a minute. I mean, when you observe sort of what's happening in the PDP, Nigerian politics, you see a lot of shifty, disreputable people. I mean, that goes without saying. Where do you think that things will go with this kind of wave of defections?
Well,
is it pretty much over for the PDP, or can
it doesn't have to be?
Right.
But Nigerian men are displaying such weakness of character. It probably will end in tears for the PDP. Just like, you see, there is no situation in Nigeria now that cannot be resolved with a little bit of masculinity, and not toxic masculinity, positive masculinity. If those PDP men stand up and say no, if Fubara stands up and say no, things can change.
Right, okay. On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's always brilliant getting the chance to talk with you. Donu Kogbara is the international multimedia journalist, former BBC correspondent, currently a columnist with Vanguard newspaper, the star of a YouTube channel called Donu's World, co-presents a podcast called Africa Here and Now, and writes for the Europe-based magazine Africa Report. Good to see you again. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.